Hi there. So thank you everybody who sent me mail. Well, I've been on a little bit of an unscheduled hiatus because my motherboard died. I was sure that it was either my RAM, my video card, my motherboard, or my CPU, and it turned out to be the motherboard, so I had to remove everything and put it all back in there. But now it's working much better and so much quieter. So tonight I want to talk about religion and whether your religious experience is something that you've derived or something that you've discovered. And I think we're really impoverished. Most people in mainstream culture are really impoverished because their personal religious practice and experience tends to lean into derivation. It tends to lean into a logical argument acceptance of something that's based on truths that another person has discovered. Some sort of a text, usually, that person has set down that purports to have the authoritative argument about why you should believe XYZ. Because I think if you asked most people how they know that their religion is true, they would point to some, authoritative sage or thinker that, if they were particularly thoughtful, they might talk about Thomas Aquinas or someone like that, or Hume. No, not Hume. Or Kant. Or they might, and I know people get criticized for this, they might look at the whole Bible as a proof in and of itself. And to people who practice their religion in that way, it can be like, here's the setup that was created by the Jewish texts, and then here's the Gospels, and then here's the story of the establishment of Christianity as a state religion, and our story about how our apostles birthed it into a church. And they might say something like, there were all these horrible things that we used to do before. We used to have human sacrifices and all sorts of morally repugnant things. And now we do things like we forgive each other, which is better. This sounds like a very reasonable and logical way to bring order to chaotic, personal, idiosyncratic experiences. Your experiences, if you're trying to interpret your life in a religious way or in a spiritual way, can be kind of confusing. And it's nice to have something to rest your personal practice on. And so I tried to do that for a long time. And personally, I almost went crazy in the process of doing that because I could never stop trying to figure out religion and start acknowledging the types of personal experiences that I was having, because those experiences mostly involved demons. They mostly involved goetic and Qlipthoth and Clethopic demons. I'm still struggling to pronounce that, mostly because I write about these things instead of talking about them. Clethopic. Anyway, yeah, because I was having those experiences, I was really distressed because I wanted to be a nice Christian girl. I wanted to be a nice Christian boy first, and then I wanted to be a nice Christian girl. And now I don't want to be either a boy or a Christian. Because, yeah, when you talk about discovering your religion, then you're getting into the territory of evangelical people who are like, no, I know that this is my religion because I feel it moving very actively through my life. And I have experiences that I talk with my fellow practitioners about that no one outside the faith could ever believe. And honestly, I'm a little jealous because, I really wanted angels to be people who are, or entities who are on my side. But then I had an experience with something that I think was an angel, and I really didn't get along with it at all. I thought it was really oppressive. But then I started to get up to date with some of the mythology that some people are making about demons in the modern world. Like Charlie over here, right? I started to think, oh, okay, they're not bad. They're kind of extra in a lot of ways, but they're not, bad. And in fact, the way the mythology seems to be going is very much in the vein of William Blake, this idea that hell represents chaos and heaven represents order, and these two things are sort of incomplete without each other. And then I felt really fortunate that when I started to look up demonolatry, I found that most of the texts that the religion centers on, or the spiritual practice centers on, don't provide any moral prescriptions at all. They're just like, okay, here's how you have very sustainable, controlled, like good for you and your life types of spiritual experiences. And then you can build a spiritual practice for yourself based on that. And then, like, kind of adjacent, there's Satanism, which does have a satanic Bible, but like, I don't know. I don't want it. I don't want it to be necessarily a part of my religion. At times, I've wanted to make some kind of like a serious, theological or philosophical work in that vein. But I should probably just do fan comics. I'd probably be happier. My hand hurts sometimes and I need to do my physical therapy on it. But honestly, I think that having people who have a lot of spiritual experiences in your community is great from a scientific standpoint, because that means that there's a lot of evidence coming into the pipeline, even though it seems kind of weird to be handed kind of like an eldritch entity phone book and someone saying like, okay, here's how you get in touch with, these are the entities that we know of. Here's how you get in touch with them. Here's what they might do for you. Just go have fun, make some cold calls, think about who might have gotten in touch with you in the past based on how you process those experiences. It is very, I think, good exploration. It's good science when a lot of us can come together and say, oh yeah, I had an unverified personal gnosis of this entity, and then someone else comes along and reads it and is like, oh yeah, I had a similar experience. And so that's something that lends credence to the idea that there's something really going on here. Like, oh, I met this guy named Stolas or Seer, and or I saw this symbol in a dream. That seems to line up. Okay, there's something going on here. Whereas among mainstream religious people, what you're almost always going to find is conditional validation of a very certain kind of religious experience. Like if you have a certain saint or a certain angel or Jesus himself show up to you in a dream, or you see some kind of a sign like you have holes in your hands or wrists, that, yeah, that is a validation of your religious path. But all other kinds of religious experiences are denoted as demonic. Most mainstream religious figures, like most pastors, will tend to talk about like, oh, God spoke to me, but not literally, and I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was like, but I think it was about this. And then every once in a while, you'll get somebody who claims to be a prophet who starts what we might call a cult. And they have some sort of they will tell you what was related to them, but they're going way out on a limb with it. And so in general, I would say with these religions that like they're actually creating a society, they're creating a community where the raw spiritual experience that undergirds religion is suppressed, and they're building logical arguments based on some individual experience that some smaller set of people had very long ago, hundreds or thousands of years ago. And they have a track record of calling people who have conflicting experiences heretics and executing them. My personal feeling is that if Christians were more secure in their religion, they would be more open to spiritual experiences in general, that perhaps the spiritual experiences that they're having, if they were more directly supportive of their religion, it would be more okay, it would be more acceptable to talk about those experiences, to actually discuss the things that happen to you, the things you hear in your head, the types of weird things that happen to you, and the weird dreams that you have sometimes, if any. Personally, I think the fact that they're so terrified of demons is very validating and tends to lend credence to my own spiritual experiences. I'm not hostile to them at all. I don't know. The most common thing that happens is like I meet somebody who's a practicing Christian and I'm like, oh boy, do you want to talk about spiritual things? And they're like, ah! The only thing that we seem to disagree on is like the moral disposition of various entities. Like, oh, you have strange, menacing, tempting experiences with these guys? Oh, well, they're always nice to me. I don't know why they're so mean to you, or I don't know why your relations with them are so problematic. I think I see a mirror of this in how a lot of people think about scientific practice, like the methods of scientific inquiry, and how much higher figures like Einstein register in most people's consciousnesses versus the on-the-ground researchers who are actually carrying out the experiments that ultimately proved the standard model of physics to the extent that it has been proved. I think we have a really romantic notion of people who just seem to receive the truth from somewhere, or who seem to figure it out from very basic principles, who create something kind of elegant, versus people like Feynman, who's kind of just like, oh, I don't know, don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it all means. Just go do experiments, go do math, just calculate things. Don't worry about what space-time is or what fields are. It's like in the demonology subreddit that I participate in, you quite frequently get people talking about things like, what are demons? Who is Lilith? Is it an elder goddess? Is it the first woman? Which part of the mythology is it? And it's like, I want to tell these people, that's not the important part. Who knows? We don't know. We maybe can't know. And I kind of realize, I understand why a lot of people, if you present them with the story of their life, well, boy, we have no idea what's going on, but this is a fun roller coaster to be on. Buckle up. I hope you have a good ride. Most people don't want more roller coaster. They want some peace and quiet. But I believe very firmly that the only way you're going to get to the comfort that you desire is by having adventures, by discovering things. So if you made it this far in this video, thank you for listening. I hope you have some good adventures. Take care.